What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the Fancast Live podcast. Giancarlo here with you. I am going to be joined by my buddy Jamie Hollywood Barrett in a few moments, where we'll preview the season finale between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys, a game in which has playoff implications for both teams. Giants win and a Washington loss, and the Giants are crowned NFC East champion. A Dallas win and a Washington loss crowns the Dallas Cowboys NFC East champions. And if Washington wins, regardless of what the Giants or Dallas Cowboys do, the Washington team will be crowned NFC East champions and host a wild card game next week. But before we get to that, I just want my listeners to know that you can listen to this episode of the Fancast Live podcast and many more like it on most major podcast platforms like Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and of course, our host, Anchor.fm. All right, guys, with no further ado, let's get you to that segment where Jamie and I preview the season finale between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. Enjoy. So, Jamie, let's get us started. You wanted to talk some college football. You saw some games yesterday that you were interested in. I'm not a big college fan. I only follow the players as far as the draft is concerned. So you are the expert on college football. So give us your take on the games that you saw yesterday.
Yeah, awesome, Giancarlo. Thanks for being with you again, and hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year too. So shout out to that family
Yeah,
first.
thank you. You too, man.
Absolutely. So a couple of college football games on the slate yesterday. There was three in particular that had my interests because I am a Georgia Bulldogs fan. So the first game of the day, 12 o'clock noon, you had the winner of the AAC conference, which is not a Power 5 conference. That was Cincinnati, undefeated, had a reputation for a competitive football team. They've had a nice season against Georgia, and Georgia is a team that year in and year out they're competing for the playoff in the top 4 seeds. Did not go Georgia's way this year. Had some quarterback issues at the beginning of the year. Had some guys out. Their top quarterback transfer quit the season with COVID. So just a very not fluid situation early on. Georgia did catch fire with JT Daniels, quarterback, USC transfer, had a nice finish to the season, and they're coming into this game. And I was very surprised. Cincinnati they deserved to win this football game, in my opinion. They gave Georgia all they could handle. At the end of the day, Georgia's defense, the second half, locked them up. And you're talking about, a total difference in talent that, the SEC defenders that these guys bring in were just overmatching the athletes that Cincinnati had. And eventually, through a 51-yard field goal, Georgia skates away with the victory there. So good job to Cincinnati in that spot. I think that program has a little bit better feeling about themselves. Georgia has a lot to work on, but, a win is a win. And they're going to go into next year with a pretty good class of, weapons there. You have the two semifinal games here. Yesterday as well, you had Alabama versus Notre Dame. Alabama with a historic offense. We already know their history about their program and Nick Saban against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's a team that, every year people say they're overrated. Are they going to win a big game? Again, I just think it was a track meet. Notre Dame, it was a tough loss to Clemson at the end of the year. To draw Alabama first blood is really tough. Notre Dame tried to make it competitive, but Alabama was just way too much. Devontae Smith going to win the Heisman Trophy. He ran all over Notre Dame, and they just didn't have the athletes there. So, you got to credit Notre Dame for covering the spread and, really showing a good effort. But, Alabama was just way too much. And the last game was the biggest surprise of them all. You have a lot of draft implications, riding on this game when it comes to position players and also quarterback. Justin Fields played his best game of his career. He struggled last year in the, playoff game against Clemson. Had a tough turnover, didn't have a great game. But in this spot here, you got to give him a lot of credit. Took a big shot to one of their best linebackers, took it right in the ribs, got right back out there, threw a touchdown pass. That running game for Ohio State, I think, is surprising a lot of people. Only getting into the bowl game here with 6 wins. I was one of the skeptics of that. I think other teams should have been in consideration. But, a lot of people are eating crow today because Clemson got their ass whooped last night. And it wasn't really close. And if there's any doubt about Justin Fields being ready for the next level, those were totally squashed yesterday. I've never seen a performance in recent memory have as much impact on a draft status like last night, because you're going against Trevor Lawrence. He's going 1 to the Jags, but definitely interesting moving forward. I think Justin Fields, I think Jets fans are going to be a lot more comfortable now bringing him in that spot. Tough game, especially in the first half, but just surprised. Ohio State, beating them down at the line of scrimmage. Totally wanted this game more. Let's face it, Dabo Swinney, not the best effort here from Clemson. And so those are your three games, and the national title is going to be a good one. Ohio State, Alabama, it should be high scoring. And, you got two legendary programs going at it in a week or so.
Was that the third time that Alabama played Notre Dame this year?
No, so they played Clemson this year. Didn't play Alabama,
right.
I don't believe.
Right. I couldn't remember which team it was. I know they played one team at least twice this year. Mm-hmm. Was it Clemson?
That was Clemson. So Notre Dame's in the ACC now, so they used to be an independent team. And I think this benefits Notre Dame in the future. Being in a Power 5 conference is going to help them with the committees and get that program going. I think their program with Brian Kelly is outstanding, but you can't recruit the best athletes from the hotbeds of talent in this country to go to Notre Dame, because Notre Dame is a Catholic school. You need really good grades to stay in, and it's not really a party school. It's kind of a faith school, and it's up in Indiana, and it's just, what college kid is going to turn down a multi-million-dollar facility and the weather's warm all year round? So I think there's a lot of factors going against Notre Dame for recruiting. I think Brian Kelly and that program is doing the best they can. So there's nothing to be ashamed of if you're Notre Dame. You're playing against, a team that's just, the athletes are just at a different class. That's pretty much what happened.
Take into consideration everything that's gone on in 2020 and the fact that a lot of these football programs either started late or didn't play as many games as they wanted to. But when we bring in the conversation the two top quarterbacks that are going to be in this draft this year, in Fields and Lawrence, who do you think made the best case to be the number one quarterback in this draft?
That's a good question, Giancarlo. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence, and the reason why, he looks so much like Justin Herbert. They look like the same, build. They do exactly the same things. Their launch angle is really high. What these quarterbacks do really well is they throw the ball over defenders. Smaller quarterbacks can't do that. I think Trevor Lawrence this game didn't make Trevor Lawrence not the number one quarterback. However, there were doubts about Justin Fields. He's played in some tough spots. He's had some spotty games. But when you go up against Clemson and you put up 6 touchdown passes and you take a shot in the ribs on national TV, you get up, Justin Fields, to me, cemented his number 2 spot, because before this game, there was debate on Zach Wilson and Trey Lance and a couple of other names on the lower tier of first-round quarterbacks. I think Justin Fields elevated himself to where he's definitely going to be, the Jets at this point are in a tough spot. I think after their performance, I think the fans are going to want Justin Fields to go number 2. So I think they're probably going to solidify him at number 2 there. Well, still going to be Lawrence 1.
I would assume that Jets fans probably have a better feeling about Fields going into this draft, much more than it was before, because the conversation before was that Trevor Lawrence didn't want to go to the Jets at number 1, and then the Jets finally won some games and they fall to 2. Now the Jacksonville Jaguars are at the number 1 spot, and I've read somewhere that Trevor Lawrence isn't keen on going to Jacksonville either.
Wow.
I mean, what is Trevor Lawrence thinking here, and what could be the the implications on his draft value, come draft day? I mean, if he doesn't want to go to Jacksonville, he doesn't want to go to New York, where does he want to go, and why is he even making such a big deal out of this?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point you make, because I think the agent. So there's a lot of these moves that, remember, Trevor Lawrence is still 20 years old, so he's not wheeling and dealing these backstage deals. Okay, there is something going on with the agents and the family, and the agents sometimes have these players' ear a little bit. I think Jacksonville's a market that, quite frankly, it's small, and an agent can try to take advantage of, use that as leverage. Like, we want you to go to New York. New York is dying right now with. They've had a tough year with COVID. They would love nothing more than to have Trevor Lawrence. Maybe he feels the same way. Maybe not. Wherever Trevor Lawrence goes, he's going to have a new head coach as well. So that might have something to do with that decision-making process. At the end, Trevor Lawrence is not going to go back to Clemson. That's just not going to happen, especially after this loss. Now, you could say if they won and then maybe lost a national championship, maybe you'd want to go back, win the title. I think now, with the beating he took, he's got to lick his wounds and he's got to get ready. He's going to be the number 1 pick. I don't envision him doing any, draft deadline shenanigans like Eli Manning was able to do. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a father that played in the NFL and where someone owed him a favor. I think that's the only way that can happen. Could be that way. Who knows? I'm going to put 90% chance that he's going to the Jags.
Interesting stuff, man. Good stuff. I like I said, I'm not a big college football follower, but I do follow the players who are going to be in the draft. I always research them prior to the draft, and that was very informative stuff, Jamie. Thank you.
You got it.
So let's move on to the New York Giants here. This is a 5-11, 5-10 New York Giants team going into the season finale against the Dallas Cowboys, who are at 6-10.
6-9.
6-9, excuse me, and the Giants win and a Washington football loss, and the Giants are in the playoffs at 6-10. They'll host a wild card game. It'll be the first time a 6-10 team will host a wild card game. But listen, this is a New York Giants team that at one point started 0-5. They were 1-7. Mm-hmm. Then they go on a 4-game winning streak. They get to 5-7. Things are looking up. And then after the Seattle game, Giants took a turn for the worse and lose 3 in a row. And the Cowboys turn their season around, win 3 in a row. They're now ahead of the Giants. A win probably puts them in the playoffs with a Washington loss. So there's a lot of there's playoff implications in this game. Obviously, this is what the New York Giants fans always wanted. Obviously, it's not what we had envisioned at with the record the Giants have right now. But being said, the Giants are struggling. Whether it's on the offensive side or the defensive side, I really haven't been able to figure it out. But if you look at the numbers, the offense has really struggled. The defense has been capable of keeping the team in games, but they just haven't been that dominant like they were in that 4-game win streak. In the 4-game win streak, they had, I think, 12 sacks. They had a bunch of turnovers that went in their favor because they got points off of those turnovers. In the last 3 games, they have 1 sack, I think, and 2 turnovers.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster season in many ways, and we were on that hot winning streak, and one of the reasons why we were so effective is because we were able to run the football, run it downhill. And the reason why we were able to do that is because Daniel Jones was effective as a runner. We saw games where he would carry 8 times, 9 times. He was our leading rusher for a while. I mean, he was a guy you can lean on to get you 60 to 80 to maybe 100 yards in a game. And when he was running an offense like that with zone reads, splitting the defense, ripping off a couple 3rd down runs, it's moving the chains. It's softening up the defense. We don't have the weaponry on the outside that's going to, create mismatch, disadvantages for them unless it's Evan Engram. We really don't have a guy that can really make a play when you need it, a top wide receiver. So we were able to win football games with our deficiencies. I think the fact that we kept the ball on the field so much, we made the other teams we were playing a little bit more aggressive than usual, maybe a little uncomfortable where our defense can, have them make mistakes, get those turnovers. When you start playing from behind, you start turning the ball over. The field is flipping all the time. You're asking the defense to do more than they're probably capable of doing. And I think to this point, the Giants defense has given you all they've got. But let's face it, the Giants offense stinks and they can't move the ball right now. And until they figure out an offensive formula to put up points, we got no shot because we haven't put up, over 24, 25 points in a long time. And we have a formula to do that. Now, can we execute that formula? That's the question. Is Daniel Jones fully healthy? I don't really buy it because the fact that he's maybe ran once in the past few games is totally antithetical of what we were doing right for that win streak. So, yeah, I don't know. It really depends on how Daniel Jones' health. You have to think that on Sunday that Daniel Jones is going to be running the ball. Last game of the year, right? He has to be more mobile this game. At least try to. You know what I mean? He's got to leave everything on the field.
You would have to think so. Absolutely. I mean, this is a team that's scored 26 points in the last 3 games. Totally unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
The defense, a lot of fans are probably pointing the finger at the defense and Patrick Graham at the fact that he still continues to play the zone defense. To be quite honest with you, I don't believe the defense is to be blamed for this, because quite honestly, the offense is the one that's had their issues with third down efficiency, red zone efficiency. The play calling has been questionable, at least in my opinion. But again, Daniel Jones, this all goes right back to Daniel Jones. He has to manage the game. He has to get the Giants in a position to get a first down. Now, the running game is what brought success for the New York Giants in a 4-game win streak. In the last 3 games, they haven't been able to run the ball because they've been falling behind by 14 points in almost every game, and totally abandoning the run game to where now the offense becomes predictable. So now the opposing defenses are just sitting back there and waiting for Daniel Jones to beat them with the pass. Daniel Jones threw 31 passes last week. The week before, I think McCoy threw 24 passes, 21 passes, and then between Jones and McCoy, when Jones got hurt, another 24 attempts. Listen, the offense obviously relies heavily on the run, and they've been doing very well on the run. They've been averaging 4.6 yards per gain per rush, and those are pretty good numbers when you ask me.
Yep.
The fact of the matter is third down efficiency has been a huge problem.
Yeah.
Third and 7s, third and 10s, penalties putting them back to 3rd and 17, 3rd and 20, 3rd and 22. Plays that the Giants cannot capitalize on, because you're an anemic offense to begin with, and to have a 3rd and 22 and try to get a first down on on that kind of, by gaining that amount of yards, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. This offense heavily relies on Daniel Jones and the option play, because that's what this offense is supposed to be built around, the option. It's not – Daniel Jones is not the type of quarterback that's going to drop back 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps and look for an open receiver, because our receivers just can't get open. Okay?
It's true.
And as far as the defense is concerned, the zone defense has worked in that 4-game win streak, and it's worked well. The fact is that if you don't apply enough pressure on the opposing quarterback, he's going to have all day to look for an open receiver.
100%.
Okay.
It's been in this streak. It's been tough because we haven't been able to really do anything effectively offensively. Defensively, we got killed against Baltimore doing the zone. They ripped us apart for the first half. Credit the Giants in the second half. They put the foot down and held them the field goals, and were able to keep the score somewhat manageable. Kind of got bailed out by that, last fumble there at the end. Kind of kept the score to 30. You'll take it. I think the Giants defense earned that break. But we have not been able to effectively, control the line of scrimmage. We don't have – if Daniel Jones can't run the ball, or at least the threat of the run, all those linebackers, all those safeties coming into blitz are not going to contain. They're just going to go after them, and that's a recipe for disaster, because Daniel Jones is not the quarterback. You're right. He's not the guy that's going to stand back there and try to, run an offense, from the pocket, right? So his strength is out of the pocket. His strength is going to be zone reads and running for first downs, or for 4 yards or 7 yards, or getting in manageable situations to keep the defense guessing. And you got to take the occasional shot downfield. I mean, we don't have a deep strike offense, and, the one thing I'll give Daniel Jones is that when he does have those opportunities, Jones puts it on the money. Jones is a really good deep ball thrower. He's one of the most accurate in the league. We just don't have the guys that, can really make the plays in crunch time. Who do you go to on third down? Shepard, Shepard has his games, but he's not like a reliable target like a Julian Edelman on third down. I mean, the Giants don't have a third ground target. Receivers making tons of drops. We've talked about Engram. Last week, Austin Mack against the Ravens, a big drop in a big spot.
Huge.
Third and four. We're down 14-0. Our defense is getting killed. Our first offensive drive was stalled. Got to give Daniel Jones credit. Ripped a couple throws. 3rd and 4, threw it on the money. Austin Mack drops it. That's a different ball game. If he makes that catch, you keep him on the field. We were driving the ball a little bit between the 20s. Now, I'm not saying we score, But who knows if we can make it 14-3 or we can get on the board with 7 points. It's these little things on offense, the drops, the missed blocks, you saw Daniel Jones get put on his ass a couple of times, didn't recognize where the blitz was coming from. There's a lot going on with this offense that's not going well. And it all stems from the fact that we can't do what we're good at. And it's going to be a long road. I think we said this before, unless Daniel Jones is running that ball, keeping the defense honest, we do not have the personnel in pass protection yet. I think they run block pretty well, but pass protection in the NFL with rookie linemen is going to be a very tough task. And, we don't have the guys on the outside. Slayton is a number 2 at best. Shepard could be a slot guy, but you need to bring in a whole new crop of receivers to bring in because we have no explosive playmakers on any sort of perimeter game. And in this NFL, you want to go against Dallas, you got to figure Dallas is going to score a lot of points. Dalton's hot, and they got as good an offense as anybody, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. Listen, the Giants' defense against the Ravens gave up 249 yards on the run. That's something the Giants have been able to control for the most part this season. Their run defense has been pretty good. But, listen, Lamar Jackson didn't have to do a whole lot.
No, not throwing the ball.
And the Ravens, Lamar Jackson ran for quite a few yards, and so did the running backs. But as far as the Dallas Cowboys defense is concerned, listen, they're probably going to just stay back and let Daniel Jones beat them.
Yeah, of course.
Or they can put 8 and 9 in the box and stop the run and then defend the pass if they can go up two scores on them.
Yeah.
Like I said before, the Giants offense is very predictable. Once they fall behind by 2 scores, that's what they're going to do. They're going to go to the pass and I mean, not for nothing, but being down 2 scores in the first quarter, I don't necessarily think that you should abandon the run because you drive the ball downfield, say 80 yards if you start on the 20 or the 75 yards if you start on the 25, and you can easily be back in the game at 14-7. But the fact is that the Giants allowed the Ravens to even come back with 4 seconds to kick a field goal at the end of the half, which just extended the lead even more. It's difficult for an offense that's anemic, that has no playmakers, to be able to come back from a 17-point deficit, at the half. What do you think the Giants have to do offensively and defensively against the Cowboys in order to make this game competitive, let alone win the game, but at least competitive?
Yeah, no, it's good points he made. So I think the Cowboys defense is very suspect. They got lit up the first half by Jalen Hurts, and then they kind of clamped things down. But they're very susceptible to giving up a lot of yards. They got killed by Atlanta this year. They got torched by a lot of teams defensively. So I think, Dallas is going to try, and their strength is they can get after the passer, but they can't cover anybody, and their linebackers are not coverage guys. And, the Giants are going to have to make plays, I think, on third down. So the Giants, I think it's Baltimore Ravens. Look, the Giants haven't scored on anybody. So to come in here and say the Giants are going to put up 25 because Dallas isn't any good is just a wrong assessment here. But the Giants are very familiar with the Cowboys. Jason Garrett, our OC, we all know the history with Dallas. I think schematically there's going to be more advantages in the film room this week compared to other weeks because we probably know this team a lot better than we probably knew of Baltimore or knew of Arizona or something like that. So I think there's a familiarity and a comfort. I think, listen, last time we played Dallas, we lost by 3 points. It was very competitive. Dak Prescott knocked out that game as well. But, the Giants put up a lot of points, and they moved the ball. And that was when Daniel Jones was healthy. So if Daniel Jones is healthy, I think he's going to feed off of that confidence, and I think he's going to be okay, for the most part. But if we're not, running the ball, we got to use Gallman. We have to convert on third down. The Giants can win this game, but defensively, they're a handful. I think the one thing the Giants can probably anticipate is turnovers. Andy Dalton is more susceptible to turnovers. The Giants have some big-time players back healthy in the lineup. You're going to have back Holmes. You got Martinez back again. You got Bradbury. Giants defense comes to play. I think the offensive line of Dallas is definitely banged up. There's a lot of guys out with injuries. They used to be an impenetrable wall. That is not the case anymore. So I do like the Giants to get more pressure on Andy Dalton. I'm not scared of Andy Dalton out of the pocket that much. But what I am afraid of is probably the receivers on Dallas being able to make plays. Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper. You still got Elliott, and CeeDee Lamb is an outstanding rookie. So I think the Giants defense, Cowboys offense, that's going to be a very intriguing matchup. I like Dallas to get their points. I don't think Dallas is going to kill us. I think Dallas is going to put up somewhere in the 20s, maybe in the high teens, early 20s. It's a cold day. It's a very cold game. I think this is going to be played in New York or at Giant Stadium. So that's going to help the Giants. I think that helps the Giants a lot. With the way that you think the fast track offense like Dallas wants to compete. So listen, I think fundamentally on defense, we do all the right things because at the end of the day, it's Dalton. I do expect – listen, Giants had to play zone last week against Lamar Jackson, the way that he plays the game. You have to have a spy sitting back. Andy Dalton, you can bring the house. I think, listen, if you're Patrick Graham, go down swinging. Blitz, blitz, blitz. Make Andy Dalton very uncomfortable. Shift, do some stunts at the line of scrimmage. Get Leonard Williams involved. And maybe bring Jabril Peppers off the edge. You got to make some dynamic defensive plays. I think the Giants can do that against Dallas. Now, can they execute these plays? If Andy Dalton starts hitting those guys on third down and moves the ball, we're in trouble. So if we lead with our defense, be aggressive, try to force turnovers, pin them back deep, sound special teams, and then we need an opportunistic offense. Look, our offense is not good enough to just score. They have to take advantage of a turnover. They have to put up points in the red zone, more touchdowns and field goals, and be responsible with the football. Look, we can't be fumbling and throwing picks this game. We got to take care of the ball. So the game is definitely winnable. Right now, the spread, I think, is +1 for the Giants, which tells you it's going to be close. I'm very surprised. I thought Dallas would be a little bit more favored in this game, maybe -4 or something. I'm a little surprised at that line. So that shows you that a lot of experts think this is going to be a very close game. And, 1 point favorite for Dallas is kind of a little bit surprising to me. So maybe there is some matchup advantages that we don't even know about. But look, it's more possible this game than it was against the Ravens and some of these other teams where you really can't compete. The NFC East, you hope for familiarity in the matchups. Let's see how Garrett calls this game. A lot is riding. We talked about this. We texted each other about this. A lot is riding on this game for Jason Garrett.
I totally agree. I hope Daniel Jones is listening. He needs to protect that ball, definitely. No doubt about it. Jason Garrett has been, a person that I've been thinking about as of late, and just as you just mentioned, we text back and forth about it. I don't know who to point the finger to more. Is it Daniel Jones or is it Jason Garrett? Is it Jason Garrett just being too conservative with Daniel Jones because of his injury? But then you think about, well, what about the offense prior to his injury? Is Jason Garrett the right guy for this offense? Because as we mentioned before, Daniel Jones is not the guy that's going to drop back, stay in the pocket, and throw the ball. He's going to heavily rely on the option, either hand it off or take the ball and run down himself. That's the Daniel Jones that we have gotten accustomed to in the first season or two here. He's the guy that we felt was going to be able to come in here and run this offense because that's who the Giants fans wanted. They wanted a mobile quarterback. Well, they got one. Now, granted, he's got a hamstring injury that's bothered him a little bit. Hopefully, coming into this game, he's at least at 90%, 95% to the point where he can run the ball a little more efficiently. Because if he doesn't, this is going to be a long day. Because if Dallas scores 20-plus points in this game, Jamie, it's fucking over.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, you're definitely right on that. I don't see Dallas jumping all over the Giants quickly. The Giants defense is going to hold very strong. It's going to be a close game. Unless we have a bad injury or something unusual happens. Andy Dalton is a guy that's susceptible to turning the ball over. He's not a true starting quarterback. Now he's doing a good job the last few weeks. He's running that offense effectively, and you got to give credit to Mike McCarthy, and they're really rallying around. The Cowboys could have easily folded this season and they're hot right now, and their offense is one of the best in the league right now. But at the same time, you got Andy Dalton. He is going to be more likely to make a mistake and win it all type of game, I think. A lot's riding on him as well and his future. So there's a lot of pressure to go around. Jason Garrett, look, I mean, yes, you could say he's disappointing because of the results. It's easy to say that. He doesn't have a lot of talent around him to execute plays, but you still look at it and you're still dead last. Now, Daniel Jones being fully healthy is going to be a big factor in how Jason Garrett, calls plays and creates plays. I don't know what they're doing in practice, but we saw from the winning streak, Daniel Jones as a runner and a threat to run keeps the defense a little bit less aggressive, opens some things up. I think in a winner take home game, end of the season, you know what? You gotta let him run. You gotta let him run. And if that hamstring goes up, it's the last game of the year anyway.
Limp, you know what I mean? And limp to that first down marker. I don't care. Just limp.
I'm going to be the happiest person in the world if Daniel Jones goes a handoff, tucks it, and runs that thing for 20 yards. Because that's a formula for success. If he can do that, well, the whole game is different. Then our offensive line is getting that push. Then we're really controlling the line of scrimmage. But if he can't do that, it's going to be a long day. I don't love the corners. Jalen Hurts had a tough time. He's a rookie quarterback. He's got a lot of potential, but he's a running quarterback first. Daniel Jones can make all the throws. Listen, we got to catch the ball. Slayton, wide receivers can't be dropping third downs in any game, but especially this one. I like the Giants to get a little bit more separation offensively, and the execution has to be the wide receivers. They got to run the right routes. Daniel Jones has to be smart, check down when he has to, and take the occasional shot. But, we are very limited on offense. So let's just say this game is very, very close. We lose a heartbreaker. I don't think Jason Garrett will lose his job, although I think Joe Judge is going to want to consider something else. There's a lot to go through with that. But if we get blown out by the Cowboys like a 31-10, he's out, I think. And Dave Gettleman's probably out too. Now, if we play a very competitive game, if we win this game and we end up making the playoffs, the way that like Mara and the Giants, they're not going to let go. Even if it's 6-10, they're not going to let go of Gettleman and Jason Garrett, especially after 2 losing seasons. And now you're building up to this year. So if the trajectory is up, I don't think it's fair to now. Giants fans can say all they want. I don't want Gettleman. I don't want Garrett. We have to think rationally here. If we win this game, go to the playoffs, they're both staying. But I think you could also agree. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think if they get blown out this game, that they're both in jeopardy.
I would have to agree. I mean, me and you spoke about Jason Garrett when he was hired, and we both agreed that we thought this was a good move. We thought it was a good pick because of the fact that he's a great offensive mind. Granted, when he was the head coach of the Cowboys, he eventually relegated the play calling to someone else because obviously his play calling just wasn't working out. And Dallas's offense, woke up again. But do we think that Jason Garrett's offensive scheme here is the right fit for the New York Giants, or Daniel Jones, I should say?
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say right now.
We don't know what he's able to do because if the Giants are behind closed doors, if Jones just can't run the damn ball, well, how can we criticize the vanilla play calling if your quarterback can't run? Because we saw a lot of zone reads. We saw a lot of quarterback runs, consistently week after week. So a game plan, I can't imagine a game plan. Let's just scrap him running the ball. I don't think that's the case.
Listen, the game plan should be, regardless of who's running the ball, you got to run the ball.
Right.
It's the only way you're going to win this game.
Yeah, but if the quarterback can't run the ball, our running backs are not talented enough to get on those creases, right? I mean, you don't have a guy that can break one off. Saquon was dipping and dodging behind the line of scrimmage. I'm sure his style is going to change, next year when he comes back. But if it's hard for me to say like it's run the ball, but Daniel Jones has to be a part of that for the running game to work. Both complement the other. Alfred Morris is not running 25 yards.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. I just think that Third down efficiency is
Can't drop
critical.
passes.
It's critical for the New York Giants offense to keep the offense on the field, because if you run on first down and you get 5 yards, you're at 2nd and 5, and you run on second down for another 3-4 yards, you're at 3rd and 1 now. Your chances of continuing that drive on a 3rd and 1 as opposed to a 3rd and 10, your chances are a lot better. That's why I think the run game is going to be so important for the New York Giants against the Cowboys, because that's where the problem has been, is keeping the offense on the field.
Yeah.
And not allowing the defense to catch their breath before they realize, geez, we're coming back on the field already, because it was a 3 and out. This is going to be critical for the New York Giants. Third down efficiency. The play calling has to be on. I mean, the receivers have to do their job.
Roll Daniel Jones out on third down, because Jones made the first half, the Austin Mack drop. You had the Steve Slayton teardrop throw. It was a beautiful ball by Daniel Jones on the left sideline. Slayton just dropped it. We have to have guys make plays on third down. Also, third and short, those are the chances to really strike downfield. But it's 3rd and 1 and everyone's stacking that line. Those are the one-on-one opportunities you want with Engram, and they can go for big gains. So the Giants are going to have some explosive plays. Dallas is going to rip off an Elliott 40-yarder. That they're going to have, a dump off to CeeDee Lamb for 30. Like, they're going to get chunk plays. The Giants have to figure out a way to do that. And, listen, you got to open up all the tricks, dude. This is the last game of the year. And you got nothing to lose of running Daniel Jones, even on an 80% hamstring. If he's limited, has to hobble off, well, that's it. The season's over anyway. So let him rip. And, I think it's all going to come down to Jones getting out of the pocket. I would expect a lot of naked bootlegs, a lot of rolling out, and having a lot of crossing routes. So maybe, Evan Engram crossing the field, maybe have Shepard underneath. Even on third down, you got to, have Jones go to the perimeter, try to, make somebody miss in the second level. I like those. You have to let him be aggressive. And if Daniel Jones throws 3 picks, well, whatever. You got to let him go out and swinging and put the ball in his hands more, especially in that spot. And, the Giants have to be willing to go with the result from that. You know what I mean? Just some clarity on that.
Right. All right, so we know what the implications are in his season finale against the Cowboys. Win and hope for a Washington loss, and you're in the playoffs. Now, let's talk about the implications of the Giants getting in the playoffs and what that does for the Giants' draft position. So we know that the Giants currently are probably in the top 5 or 6 in the order right now, if things were to stay this way.
Yeah, I think they're just underneath the 10 spot. They're in that range right now, yeah.
Okay. So they get in the playoffs, they fall another 5, 6, 7 spots.
Yeah.
So
they could go from like a 16th overall pick, or they could be, depending on who wins and loses. I mean, we talked about this earlier. If Atlanta loses at 4-10, they're 5-11. What's our tiebreaker there? The Chargers have gotten a little hot. I'm not sure where the Broncos are going to be. They're probably going to lose. They're not a good football team, but Giants are going to be right there. The Giants could have a pick around 6, 5, 8, 3. I mean, they're going to be one of those scenarios. They're going to have.
It's definitely going to be top 10.
I would say
top
7. I would say top 7.
Yeah, top 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So they get in the playoffs as a 6 and 10 team. They're going to drop quite a few spots.
Yep.
But they get bounced in the first round. What did you do it for?
Then they get blown out by Tampa. 48-0.
Right.
Look, someone's got to win this division. I know. Joe Judge is going to want to win this game bad. The organization wants to win. Dave Gettleman wants it. Garrett wants it, especially against Dallas. You don't think that Jason Garrett wants to beat Dallas?
You would hope so, right? You would hope so. You would hope so.
Jason Garrett, imagine if he calls a great game. Jones, plays well. And then, listen, Washington they have a great chance to win. I know they have Heineke in. I don't think Alex Smith is playing. They let go of Haskins, which that's very interesting as well.
I was shocked when you told me that. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know that until you told me. I didn't know anything.
That's a Ron Rivera dismissal. That's not a Dan Snyder dismissal because Washington, they never did that in the past.
No doubt.
And credit to Ron Rivera and what he's been able to do. That's a totally different story. That game, I mean, Washington could win that game easily. But listen, if without Alex Smith, if they have Heineke or Meineke, whatever the guy's name is, that's going to be a tough battle as well. So a lot's riding on this Giants game. The Giants defense will bring their hard hat. They're going to be ready to kick some ass. Well, it's all about the offense. The Giants defense, I think, is going to do their part. I don't love the Dallas offensive line that much. I think Giants will bring a lot more pressure than they have in weeks past against other teams. But what a lot is riding on this game, man, for a lot of these guys. And, rookies want to prove themselves too. You got a lot of, draft picks at the lower rounds. And, they want to, do a good job and get an opportunity. So, yeah, dude, they can be at 5 or 6. They could be at 16. I mean, there's just so many scenarios here.
The other thing you really think about, though, is the fact that what year was it when the Giants made the playoffs? I think in 9-7 or 8-8, whatever it was, when they won the last 2 or 3 games of the season and they won the Super Bowl. I think against the Patriots.
That was 2011. They went 9-7. So
right, that was
similar scenario.
That was a New York Giants team going into the playoffs, very, very extremely hot.
Yeah,
that's not the case here.
No,
they're coming off a 3-game losing streak. They're going into this season finale against the Cowboys. Coming in as 3 straight losses. It's not the same situation here. But heading into the playoffs, even if the Giants were to win this game and head into the playoffs, I don't have the confidence that they'd win that game, that wild card game, because
I wouldn't either.
They're just not hot like they were in that 4-game win streak. Had they had won the 4 games heading into the playoffs, then I would feel a little bit better about the Giants, heading into the playoffs as a 6-10 or a 7-9 team or whatever the case would have been. Mm-hmm. But listen.
Also, we don't have the weapons on offense. I mean, the Giants just can't compete with some of these teams, that can come off the bus and score 30 points. Giants don't have that kind of team. And, you don't have Saquon, who was, not really feeling his way into the game plan that much early on. And we'll see what next year brings to Saquon. But he's a dynamic player. And, Evan Engram's been our only real guy that gets open. And, that could be a matchup advantage. But other than that, on the perimeter, we've really had no success other than the occasional Slayton throw, which – he drops a few balls, but he can make some plays too. Giants are going to go for it. I mean, I think Jones will throw it downfield. I think they're going to try to be aggressive and try to get those splash plays. Listen, I think it's going to be a very close game. And, both teams are susceptible to turning over. Both teams are susceptible to mental letdowns. Both teams are susceptible to making bad penalties and mistakes. So it's the team that's going to take care of the football that, takes care of the time of possession and
third down efficiency, time of possession.
You have more third down outlets for Dallas. I like their chances on third down a lot better than ours as well.
Where the Giants start on average on the field is going to be very important. If they start in, average at their 10, 11, 12, 14, 15-yard line, they're not going to win this game. They need to get good field position. Their special teams has to set them up to do that. Third down efficiency is very important. Time of possession is very important. And I think the defense really needs to force turnovers. I think if the Giants can win the turnover game, I think the Giants have a really good chance of winning this game against the Cowboys. It's what they did in that 4-game win streak. It's what I think that needs to be done here in this game against Dallas.
I agree, too. And Dallas always has extra pressure on them, too, because they're Dallas. Mike McCarthy wants it bad. He's had some very spotty games called this year. They're also without, Dak Prescott, but they have an elite group of wide receivers. They don't do much at tight end. They don't pass block very well. Elliott's a great runner, but, this isn't the best offensive line he's had. So Dallas has a lot of danger, but the guy pulling the trigger is someone that, if you're a defense, you got to lick your chops a little bit. He holds on to the ball. He is not always fleet to foot or the guy to make the best decision. And Giants have to take advantage of that and put their defense in a good position to be successful. If the Giants can stop the run, I think they will do that. As Elliott's a great runner, but I think Elliott's just as big a threat in the passing game. I think that's where the Giants have to worry about Elliott is the passing game, those short little dump-off passes. But, look, you got to find the right matchups, and Patrick Graham has to call a great game. I think he's very capable. And I like the Giants to be aggressive early defensively. Let's see some blitzes on first down. Let's get Andy Dalton a little uncomfortable, a little bit get into his head, a little doubt in the first quarter, get the seed in his head that, this isn't his day, and maybe rattle him. That's really a good formula for success defensively. Having a Jabril Peppers in his face with a hand up on a throw, getting people outside on the edge, getting Blake Martinez involved in the blitzes. You might sacrifice a big play here and there too, but the Giants they gotta leave this game knowing they gave their best shot. I think if they're aggressive early, I like our chances to get turnovers, because if we get down in the game and they just start running with Elliott, then it's going to be a lot harder for us to get those turnovers.
Absolutely,
we really need them.
Totally agree. So, what's your prediction on the game? What do you think the final score is going to be, Jamie?
Man, I'll do a scenario in where I think, listen, if the Giants win the game, I don't think the Giants are going to win this game. I don't think Daniel Jones is healthy. I think they're lying. I think they're keeping it very ho-hum and hush. I think Daniel Jones is still with the hamstring a little bit hindered, and it scares me a lot because Dallas can get the pressure every once in a while. So,
well, look at it this way: if that's the case, if they felt that Daniel Jones wasn't going to be able to go today, having the playoff implications in this game, I don't think Daniel Jones would be playing. They'd probably be sitting him.
I don't think so. Daniel Jones is a tough kid. I do love that about him, is he's not going to play hurt. He's not going to feel sorry for himself. He's strapping on the helmet and putting in the mouth guard and going in. So Jones is, look, I think Jones has to go for broke here. It really depends. I mean, the Giants, if the game goes the Giants' way, it's going to be in the 20s. I think the defense for Dallas can get had at times. I think the Giants will move the ball a little bit. I like the way that we can run. I think we're going to run on them a little bit too. I think Gallman's going to have a nice game, might pop off a few runs. So I think that's possible in this game. If the Giants win this game, it's going to be like 27-24 or 24-20 or something along those lines. I could see them getting a couple field goals, maybe one turnover max, and get opportunistic on a couple of plays and holding the Dallas offense in check, because Andy Dalton is limited in what he can do, I think, especially in the cold weather too. That's going to have a big factor to these guys.
Well, the weather for tomorrow, I think, is supposed to be 45 to 50 with some heavy rains. So yeah, the rain is going to be a factor in this game.
Definitely.
Now, Andy Dalton's played in Cincinnati, where he's seen a lot of rain, so I'm sure he's experienced in playing in the rain. Daniel Jones, I don't know what his experience was down at Duke as far as the weather is concerned, but the rain is going to be a factor in this game.
It's going to be a factor, but I do like Daniel Jones being able to throw it deep if he has to in the conditions better than Dalton. I think he's better at that. I also like the Giants on defense getting after Dalton in tough conditions a lot, because I don't love Dallas and their limitations on the offensive line. If Patrick Graham can call a great game and be aggressive early and say, Andy Dalton, you have to beat us. We are going to blitz you all day long. Can you convert on those hot reads to one of your great receivers? If the Giants can put the pressure on early, I like their chances. I don't know. I'm very back and forth in this game. I obviously want to pick the Giants, but if the Giants do win, it's going to be in the 20s, 24-21, something like that. But I could also see the Giants, losing, 27-12 or 27-13. I could see the Giants not moving the ball, because I have not seen the Giants do anything offensively to give me any confidence. Our pass protection was so. There was a play, he got sacked 3 times in a row. You have to see at the line of scrimmage, there's 2 white jerseys next to the blue jerseys. Mm-hmm. You got to have a running back come across the formation. You got to check to the left side. You got to roll the other way. And that was just unbelievable to me, the ineptitude that him to do that. So a lot scares me offensively. I'm I'm not sold on Daniel Jones. How can you be sold on Daniel Jones? He has to be effective as a runner, lower in the shoulder, getting, those extra yards. I don't know what Jason Garrett can do. I really don't know what he can do. I mean, the Giants can score points more against Dallas. Is the game plan going to be working for Daniel Jones? Is he going to roll out of the pocket on third down? Is he going to be willing to, stand in there and take some hits? Can the receivers make plays? Nothing has been proven to me the past 3-4 weeks that the Giants can do that. And they beat Seattle. They scored 17 points. So we have to look. I don't know. The Giants have to win it in the low 20s if they're going to win, and I don't know if they can. So
I can definitely see many of those scenarios. I can see scenarios where the Giants can win this game. I can see scenarios that the Cowboys can win this game. But ultimately, what it all comes down to is whether or not the Washington team wins or loses.
Listen,
so none of this matters unless Washington loses Sunday night.
It could be a slop fest. It could be like 13-7. It could be a terrible game like that, and that will favor the Giants. The sloppier the game, the worse the conditions in the trenches. The Giants do have the edge there, I believe.
I think Graham Gano has been a very good kicker for the Giants this year, so he could definitely be a factor, in the fourth quarter, late in the game. With seconds left on the clock and him kicking a 53-yard field goal.
And the field position game is going to be big, especially if the weather's bad too. We're going to have to check what happens. But listen, our special teams has had some hiccups this year, which has been surprising. I think that has to do with a lot of those guys playing. So the special teams needs to keep it tight. We can't be CeeDee Lamb, rookie, he's a premier player. He's going to probably take some punts. I wouldn't be surprised if Jabril Peppers tells coach, hey, I want it. And we might have Jabril Peppers back there for a couple of those plays as well. So every possession is going to matter. Every throw is going to matter. I like the Giants' defense a lot in this game. Now, whether we win or not, I don't know. I do love their defense in getting turnovers, getting sacks, getting an interception, doing some of those plays. So I do like the Giants' chances, but if we can't take advantage of those opportunities, it's all for naught. So I like the game in the 20s, right? I don't think Dallas is going to put up in the 30s. I think our defense is capable of stopping them, and I just think the weather, as you alluded to, is going to hurt them, right? So established to run early. Daniel Jones, if Daniel Jones could be a threat in these conditions, that is very dangerous for Dallas, because Dallas has had some really tough times with mobile quarterbacks and running all over them. So,
But that's my biggest concern with the rain, though. Daniel Jones is my concern because running in the rain – one slip,
the football's flying all over the place.
Well, not even that. His hamstring might pop again. That's my main concern. I mean, how many times have you run on wet surface or on ice and pulled a hamstring in the process? So, I mean, it's going to be difficult for Daniel Jones to run. But that's why I think the running game with Gallman and Morris is going to be key to keep the ball, keep the ball out of Daniel Jones's hands.
Yeah,
it's going to be key. So, but again, none of this is going to matter unless Washington loses Sunday night. Who are we going to throw the ball to tomorrow? It's a good question, man.
Who are we going to throw the ball to tomorrow?
I think screen passes to Alfred Morris and Wayne Gallman is what I think they should be doing.
I think you're going to see a lot of screen passes. I like Wayne Gallman as a pass catcher better than Morris. I think Morris is strictly a downhill runner.
Yeah,
I love Evan Engram. If you can have Evan Engram maybe on an end around, jet sweep, get him on a screen pass. Little passes where, defensive players have to align their feet in the bad conditions. Maybe Evan Engram has an advantage there. For deep balls, you got to like Slayton there, although that's going to be once or twice in the game. I don't see him getting a lot of targets because he just doesn't get open on the short routes. But we'll see what happens. Shepard, I like Shepard.
I like to see Shepard more involved in
he had a good game last week. He had a good game last week, 9 catches, 100 yards, some of them in garbage time. But, hey, listen, I like Shepard and Tate in these conditions to be able to cut. They're not the fastest guys downfield, but they're going to be making those cuts in the conditions. I do like Shepard to have an impact on third down. Austin Mack, limited actions, dropped a few balls. You saw Dante Pettis, this guy they brought in from Washington University. He's been bounced around the league, was a great punt returner. He might get some action here as well at wide receiver. It's going to be a wide receiver by committee who's going to make plays.
All hands on deck, man. All hands on deck.
And, Jabril Peppers has never seen any action at, tailback this year. Listen, he wants it. He's a competitor. He wants to win every game. Jabril Peppers in his career, whether he was at Michigan, whether he was even in Cleveland, they put him at tailback. They had him on sweeps. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But listen, it's something that certainly, if Joe Judge believes that every player can give something value, then you certainly have to consider all options at this point. So, yeah, I mean, look, the Giants could do well this game, right? But there's also a lot of things materialize throughout the course of the game, and you are who you are. You're 5-10 football team. The Giants are not a 8-7 football team that makes some mistakes that they have to overcome. No, they are a team that makes a lot of mistakes. They are a team that has periods of the game where they can't score and can't take advantage. So, but that happens to Dallas too. But Dallas is hot right now. They got the momentum. Dalton has a lot of confidence. Now, what I'm hoping for is that Andy Dalton's confidence gets the better of him a little bit in these conditions. Maybe he tries a little bit too hard to make the perfect play because he's on a good momentum, and maybe it comes back to haunt him. So that's maybe where the betting man is on this, because, Andy Dalton, he's hot. We have him right where we want him, right? I mean, he thinks he can make every throw. He thinks he's going to, win this game for him. And, they got to be careful about what they're calling plays too, right? I mean, is Mike McCarthy going to call a good game? He's called good games. He's called bad games, right? We'll see, what transpires here. So there's a lot that goes into this game. And to top it off, you got, the draft order implications. I mean, we could be sitting at somehow if we, I think Washington could win this game, but we don't know, right? So we could be, in a top 10 pick, 16th pick. We can get the 6th pick. And boy, is that going to be a fun discussion at the end of the year. That is going to be a discussion, because there's so many ways you could go about doing it, right? And is Daniel Jones your guy? So it's all going to be factored in.
Before we close this out, Jamie, I always bring this up in conversations with you. Daniel Jones, is he the guy or is he not the guy?
It's
A
hard.
lot of Giants fans are out there, and I
don't think so.
I need to stop reading everything on Facebook and Twitter, because a lot of Giants fans are so low on Daniel Jones. I think with the exception of his health, I think he's been banged up a bit too many times in the first 2 seasons of his career, as opposed to Eli Manning going 16 years without ever having an injury. That scares me a little bit about Daniel Jones, but I think he's got the skill set, and I think he has the capability of running this offense. I just think I just think that Giants fans need to be a bit more patient. I know he's going. It's it's the 2nd season. He's going into his 3rd season, but a lot of Giants fans want him out. What's your take on that? Do you think?
Well, Giants fans are very impatient. They also wanted Eli Manning out. Remember that? I mean, 2007, we start 0-2. In 2007, people are like, Coughlin's got to go, Eli Manning's got to go. Then we win 6 straight. Then we lose then we win the Super Bowl, right? So, I mean, Giants fans, just like Jets fans too, they're very impatient. Here's what I look around. How do you have an NFL team that is going to go on a Super Bowl run? What we've seen historically the past few seasons, including the Chiefs, Seahawks, a lot of these teams, you have to hit on that first-round quarterback. Got to hit. And then when they're young and they're not making a lot of money, that's when you bring in the veterans at all of these positions, safety, linebacker, pass rush. You bring them in. They're trying to build a team around Lamar Jackson on both of the lines. And you're trying to build a team around Pat Mahomes. They tried to do it with Russell Wilson. Then he got paid a lot of money. Now they got to go back and do it again. So that's one of the recipes for success. I haven't seen any real other form of that. Now, the teams that have lost in the Super Bowl were well coached, but you had the Patriots that keep going, and you had the occasional team pick them off. But then other than the Patriots, which is an anomaly because you cannot run an NFL roster right now the way the Patriots did it 20 years ago and how they perfected that game plan. It's not going to happen again. It's an anomaly in history. So how do you do it? So if you're on the camp that you have to hit on the first round quarterback. Now, Lamar Jackson, he runs his team like with run heavy. They're going to run the ball, be efficient on third down, sprinkle in some splash plays, right? So that's their formula for success. But that's also faulty at times. Like, are they going to be able to catch up with Kansas City? Can they catch up if they're down 20 to Tennessee? We don't know that, right? So then you have a superstar quarterback like a Rodgers or a Mahomes that can just backbreak you on third down. Got to get a play. You make that play. You move around. You just use your wizardry to do it. Unless you have a quarterback that can make a lot of those plays, Drew Brees can do it. Russell Wilson can do it. Rodgers and Mahomes could do it. Josh Allen can do it. The Giants, if you're on that camp that you have to hit the first round pick, is Daniel Jones capable of making those plays? Physically, probably is, right? I think, but there comes a time where the turnovers are a big problem. They're a massive problem. That's going to cause a lot of no one likes fumbles, dude, and no one likes interceptions, and no one likes bad third down efficiency. Now, you could say Daniel Jones doesn't have the weapons. You got to commit one way or the other. The Giants can be successful with Jones if he's running the ball 8 to 12 times a game. That's our formula. That's his formula, because then he can make those big plays down the field because you're making the defense honest. So it's hard to judge. Is he the guy? Listen, it depends on where we end up in the draft. On your equity, you have to make sure in the first round you take a guy that's going to be with you for the long haul, that's going to change your franchise, wherever that is. Now, we both love pass rushers. I think pass rushers is a big need for us. But if we can get the right guy at quarterback, at number 6, I mean, look, Trey Lance might be sitting there at 6, because, Cincinnati and is Atlanta going to take a quarterback? I don't know. Who knows? But there's going to be it depends on the value. If some quarterback is available that you can't miss, they'll take him. But if that perfect quarterback isn't there, then you got to go all hands on deck to help Daniel Jones be successful. There is no middle ground. You don't draft a quarterback and say, well, Daniel Jones can maybe compete for the job. No. If you take a quarterback in the first round, that's it. And then you move on. So it really depends on where we fall in the draft, I think. I don't think he's our guy right now. I don't. Now, if he goes and plays tomorrow, he goes, 25 for 36, 3 touchdowns, no picks, runs for 45 yards, and we win, a game and takes to the playoffs. Well, that's gonna be a little bit of a different scenario. But
see, that's the thing about this offense, though, for the New York Giants. You can't have Daniel Jones throwing the ball 46 times. Daniel Jones is the type of quarterback that should throw no more than 20, 25 times.
We don't even get enough possessions for that.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly what I'm getting at, is the fact that we just don't have the offensive weapons to throw the ball 40 times, because we just don't. We just don't. We have receivers that don't get separation. Then, if we do have somewhat of a talent on this wide receiver core, they're dropping passes.
Yeah,
I
have to study. I got to study these other quarterbacks. Justin Fields put himself at number 2 with that tremendous gutsy performance yesterday. Lawrence is still the easy number 1. A lot of people are high on Zach Wilson, BYU. We'll get into this later on, I'm sure. People are very high on Trey Lance. He plays on North Dakota, not a school that's going to play big competition, but his size and athleticism is like unbelievable. He's like kind of tall, rangy, lanky, but he's faster than Jones. So there's a lot to like there. But we don't know. Could he be a Josh Allen? We don't know, right? I mean, I do think there's something about taller quarterbacks now. Herbert, immediate success. Lawrence, I think, is going to have success too, because Mahomes as well. I mean, the launch angle of the ball, to be able to throw that thing over people, is very, very important. Daniel Jones fits that criteria. Very tall, capable quarterback. So physically, Daniel Jones does really everything you want to do in a quarterback, but it just depends on where we end up in the draft. And also it depends on how Jason Garrett calls plays, because I think Joe Judge is not the kind of, I think Jason Garrett, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounded like an organizational hire to me. like by the Maras, because Garrett did serve as a Giants, assistant coach for a while, backup QB for all those years. And he's a safe choice. He's a veteran choice. I mean, I'm open for a more creative offensive play caller to come in. And it depends if Gettleman's back. If Gettleman's gone, all bets are off. I mean, if we get blown out by Dallas, if they win 36-10, 25-7 or something, if Gettleman goes, that next GM is going to make the final say if Daniel Jones is going to be the guy. So that has a lot to do with it too. So this game has tremendous implications all the way around. Not for Joe Judge or Patrick Graham. Their jobs are safe. I think they've done a pretty good job, I think we could say. But Garrett, Gettleman, I would say, and even Jones are all going to be embroiled in the next few hours. What's gonna happen here? But right now, I can't tell you he's the guy. Before I
let you go, one more thing: the offensive line. If do you think this offensive line has been rebuilt to the point where it needs to get to the next level, or do you think it needs more?
Well, Joe Judge is playing his guys, right? So Will Hernandez was supposed to be a very great value pick for us second round a few years ago. He's not really playing much, right? So I think Joe Judge has enough offensive linemen to mold and make a really, really good group. I really believe so. Now, that doesn't mean they won't take an offensive lineman in the fourth round if they have a can't-miss guy that's on the board. This is not a great offensive line draft as maybe in years past. I don't think we're going to be in a position to take a premier offensive lineman. So, and also too, the offensive linemen in free agency really haven't worked out, not just for the Giants, but for anybody. I think you just got to draft those guys because you have to have them learn the system from the ground up to do exactly what the coach wants. If you have an offensive lineman in a different system, it's really tough for these guys. So I think the Giants, their immediate need is going to be a dynamic pass rusher. And depending on the value of the pick, they're going to probably take a high value wide receiver at some point. I think they're going to sign wide receivers too. That wide receiver room is going to be a lot different next year than it is now. Believe me.
It better be.
Yeah, it definitely will be. No, it definitely will be. I think that's where the Giants are going to have a lot of their capital in the draft is defense pass rush first, but then they're going to try to load up on any type of high value offensive players so that they can have leverage and more competition in that area. They need to be more efficient there. It's just tough to handicap.
Totally agree. Jamie, this has been fun as usual, man.
Listen, a lot's been happening, but we'll get to some Rangers start January 13th versus the Islanders. Stay tuned. We gotta have something coming up for that for sure.
That's a great opener. We'll do our season preview in maybe a week or so.
I love it
before the season starts, and let's go Giants tomorrow, man.
Dude, we need it. Dude, a lot can change. I'm sure we'll be talking, man. We'll catch you later.
Yeah, definitely, Jamie. Thanks for getting on with me today. I appreciate it. Have a good one, brother.
All right, see ya.
Take it easy.
Bye.